Why do you as a creative overthink everything? Why do you struggle to finish projects, and then when you do, why do you not even share them? Maybe it's because someone's told you you're not a real artist. Let me explain. It all started with this video.
You have to consume things outside of YouTube. Listen to music from different time periods, drinking from these muddy, anonymous puddles. The real artists are blocking that out.
I was nodding along to my orator, Jake Frew, as the clock struck 1 in the morning. He spoke to some primal fear in my inner creative. Fear that my music would never be more than mediocre garbage. Fear that I'd never be a real artist. My thinking brain sprinted to the aid of Jake.
You seem like an artist. Lawrence only really listens to old music. Why do you like pop? You spend a lot of time on YouTube. Real artists watch films, not Sidemen videos.
My brain wouldn't stop.
And what about that new indie band you've been following? They look pretty artistic. You don't look anything like them. Are you a real artist, Seb? Are you really?
And just like that, I was in a trance.
Alright, that sounds whack.
Meet Eldre. He's an extremely successful lo-fi producer who I've been watching since he was making beats in his garage. I like Eldre. Now, to Jake Frew, Eldre is the Antichrist. He's made a living by consistently releasing beats he often made in a matter of days. He caters to what his TikTok audience wants to hear, and his biggest song is directly influenced by a cartoon from 2013. You could probably even call some of his recent content junk food too. Eldre also watched Jake's video, and remember, I like Eldre.
People would think you're really smart.
Okay, what the fuck are they talking about?
And just like that, I snapped out of my trance. That was weird. Where were we? So my issue with that video isn't really to do with the message that he's trying to convey. It's more because I feel like it's part of a bigger movement of videos and content which is separating you and me in our everyday realities from this godly image of an artist and making us feel like we'll never measure up. Because let's face it, humans love worshipping things. All throughout history, we've created religions, we've worshipped gods, and recently as more people have moved away from religion, we've projected that worship onto famous people and ideas, and we continually deify things because our mental health relies on believing that there's something greater than our mundane reality. So that's why in our narrow lane of people who just like making things, it's so tempting to deify the idea of a real artist as someone who listens to only Bob Dylan and Mozart and who secludes themselves to create and only creates in fits of creative inspiration. You see those subtle undertones in the video where they talk about today's art as being muddy puddles compared to the real well of human art. You see it in poems that insist that the creative process has to be something magical and there need to be bolts of inspiration that strike you for you to be a valid artist. And you see it in classic films where they depict the greats like Mozart as someone so incredibly and undeniably brilliant that you could absolutely never relate.
But they showed no corrections of any kind. Not one. He had simply written down music already finished in his head.
And I'm sure if you consumed a couple of these little pieces of content here and there, it wouldn't really have much of an effect. But when you're constantly bombarded by it, it begins to form an image of this person who isn't you and will never be you. Man, this isn't just Instagram expectations. You pair this with the spirituality that people think of creativity with, and you get something that looks like a god. So what happens when you compare yourself to a god? Well, when you sit down to sing or play your instrument or paint a painting, you're gonna scrutinize every little idea that comes out of you because it could never measure up to what a real artist would have made. When you make that 8-bar loop that excites you more than anything you've made in months, you're gonna step back and throw it away because it didn't strike you in a bolt of lightning. You learnt it on a YouTube tutorial. And that's not how a real artist is supposed to make things, is it? And then when you sit down to just watch some Netflix or listen to some Drake or something like that and you're really enjoying yourself, you might realize that a real artist wouldn't be watching this content. You're not allowed to enjoy yourself. And probably the worst one of all, an aspiring creator may never even start to make things because they know that they'll never measure up to this real artist ideal that they've got in their heads. That shit's sad, man. In all these scenarios, you either start hating yourself, you start hating making things, or you completely stop altogether. And in all those situations, the world never gets to see the awesome shit that you could have made. That's a pretty big impact for some subtle messaging. Sick. So what's the solution? So you all know it's fucking easy to rip into other people's ideas, but a lot harder to make some better ones. So I've got a few ideas that I think could serve you a little bit better. 1, consume with caution. 2, make some shit. And 3, enjoy your life. But Seb, that first one sounds a lot like the video you just ripped into. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna be a bit cheeky with that one. I think a better way to look at this phrase is to think of it as be careful who you listen to when they start forming ideas of what an artist should be in your head. Don't just listen to random dudes on the internet because they wear a beanie and color grade their videos.
That one there was a violation.
And even this video, please take it with a grain of salt and filter it through that wealth of knowledge you have about yourself, because you're definitely the best person to give yourself advice. Only when you're being honest, of course. And then find some better role models.
I've got a couple here.
Look at that. Juicy ass! Steven Pressfield. The bloke's super spiritual about the whole creativity thing, but he treats it like a job and approaches it with a lot less mysticism than you might think. Shit. Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love when she was 30-something and had part-time jobs here and there all the way up till doing it. I'll admit this is a pretty spiritual and magical book, but learning about her and her process and who she is really helped break that ideal of a ethereal, real artist. That one's gone down the crack as well. And then this, Andrew Huang's new book. If you're on music YouTube, you've definitely heard of Andrew Huang. Basically, it gives a really detailed and grounding look at what the life of a real artist looks like, and someone who's made it on YouTube, of all places, rather than the mainstream success that people would have you believe is the only path. So yeah, expanding your view of what an artist is will really help you block out the noise when people start telling you what an artist should be. When was the last time you made something? Was it today? Was it last week? Was it last year? I know this video's been kind of feel good and like yippee to being you and woo so far, but yes, we do need to work if we want to make some cool shit. The more often you sit down to make stuff, the less mysterious the process becomes and the more familiar you get with it, and the less likely you are to fall prey to some random ideas online. I know some people would turn their nose up at the idea of having the process be less mysterious and losing the mystique, but in my experience, something awesome happens when you sit down regularly to do the thing. All the drama that used to surround sitting down gets transferred into the work. Your ideas have more space to wander and be themselves and take their own routes, because they know that if they go off track or if they become a bit weird and wonderful, you'll be back here tomorrow to make some more shit. So try out a few schedules. I can't tell you what will work for you. Maybe once a week, twice a week, maybe even make something small daily. With any luck, you'll fall into some sort of cadence and you'll look back and wonder what all the overthinking was about. Alright, there's gonna be a little backstory for this one. Remember the artist I told you about earlier in the video? This is the artist who secludes themselves from society to create things. They consume ideas created only by people who died hundreds of years ago, and they become more and more detached from reality and emerge one day with some masterpiece that illuminates the human condition in a profound way. The issue with this artist is humanity isn't hidden away in some abstract place or in some dusty old record store. It's happening all around us. Right now. You see it in your relationships with your friends and family, the interactions you have on social media, and even with your local band and on the Spotify top charts. You don't need to dive deep into some well of human art to find humanity. You just need to look around. Fred Again's a perfect example. He couldn't have made any of his actual life albums by shutting himself off from the world. He needed to be online and present with us, with our pain during and after lockdown. And he emerged with work that was so deeply tied to the present moment that it literally samples videos from his phone and from social media all through the album. And that shit kind of hit different, man. What I love about Fred is that as more and more wannabe artists try to pry humanity, reality, and art away from each other, Fred was over there banging them together in the most beautiful thing I've heard in ages. So this one's easy. Enjoy your life, notice the people around you, and drink from whatever fucking muddy puddles that make you smile. The more you lean into consuming the things that naturally light you up, the more naturally unique your work will become. So if you're like Eldre and you love cartoons, incorporate them into your music. If you're a massive jazz nerd, learn all the random jazz chords and incorporate them into songs where they don't belong. And if you just like fucking boats, I don't know, just do something with boats. Ironically, if we all just pull from the same deep well of human art, we'll all just end up making the same shit anyway. Now piss off and go watch some Netflix. Yes!